An idea can be sparked by a moment of inspiration. But making that idea come true takes time and hard work. It evolves, molds into shape, and grows. It spreads its wings in a flash, carried by the winds of inspiration. It travels from region to region and across borders. The idea moves from one mind to another, from one hand to another, drawing inspiration from each group's new input. In a heartbeat, the idea comes to life and takes flight. Soaring higher than anyone could have dreamed, even its inventors. Ideas bring us together. We work together to make them reality. Together, we create change.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My name is Lisa Salud, and I'm the General Partner of R3I Ventures. It is my great pleasure to welcome you here today to the Luxembourg Calling DeepTech Showcase of Fall 2021. We have the great privilege of welcoming 21 companies from all over the world here into Luxembourg to expand their presence into the European Union and to help us transform this country into a smart city beyond where it is today. We are a smart city deep tech venture capital firm with a group of companies, including an innovation advisory entity, the House of X, which includes the House of Deep Tech and House of MedTech, and R3I Ventures, which partners with governments, academics, and corporations for economic development, R&D innovation, and acceleration. We've had the great privilege of working in the deep tech ecosystem for more than 38 years across our team on 3 continents. And our team today comes to you from Singapore, Luxembourg, Silicon Valley, with presence in Australia, in Japan, in Israel, across the USA on the East and West Coasts, and in Toronto. I'm joined by an expert team of Olympians, venture capitalists, IP brand protection and anti-counterfeit experts, strategy experts, and commercialization gurus who have worked tirelessly over the last 6 weeks to support these companies to connect, engage, and trade into the ecosystem. We forged our initial footprint on the back of the Smart Manufacturing Week and expanded into the Singapore FinTech Festival and Switch in order to truly think and act global. Today, our founders are joining you after a number of boot camps that have helped to forge their market readiness, their investor readiness, and their pitch capability to deliver their value into an impact economy. Today, you will get to connect, engage, and trade with them in their booths and to hear from them on the panels about their particular aspirations for impact in the European Union. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to our tribute to SNT, a major research contributor to our agenda in the EU.
Research is a dynamic and innovative environment for restless minds. From one breakthrough to the next, our ideas start with creativity and go on to change industries and our economy. At SNT, our exploration of science has been advancing technology since 2009 and has grown to include over 400 researchers from all walks of life, from all around the world, and from all disciplines. With award-winning scientists, we are proud to be at the forefront of internationally competitive research, lucky to count 5 prestigious ERC grantees amongst our talented team. Located across 2 campuses in the heart of Luxembourg, Kirchberg and Belval, we bring cutting-edge science together with today's challenges to shape the solutions of tomorrow. The innovative services and products being developed in our center help position Luxembourg as a top competitive player. That's why our researchers explore solutions in 6 key areas for Luxembourg: space systems, fintech, autonomous vehicles, cybersecurity, secure and compliant data management, and the Internet of Things. From creating microsatellites that can measure soil moisture, digitalizing industries with automated robots, working with AI to create banking systems that are more secure, and tackling cyber fraud in West Africa, our solutions are changing the world around us. Technologies are developed in our state-of-the-art laboratories, specialized in robotics, computer vision, space, and more. Spin-off companies have even been born here. Collaboration with industry is central to SNT, as it ensures our research has impact by targeting real-world challenges. Being able to work with real systems and real data also helps us to ensure our research outcomes are relevant outside of our laboratories.
Our partnership program sees our research create impact here in Luxembourg and beyond. With over 60 industrial partners, we see firsthand how excellent science can address the most pressing challenges of society today.
To help them solve the challenges that confront their business, we offer the opportunity to collaborate with some of the most talented scientists from around the world. It's simple. You provide the challenge, we'll work together on a solution.
Our teams are very interdisciplinary. Many of our projects require a lot of disciplines such as computer science, engineering, or even social sciences. We believe that interdisciplinarity is the right approach towards shaping the technology of the future.
A future where the world is more ambitious,
secure,
trustworthy,
connected,
reliable, innovative,
visionary,
intergalactic.
Join us today and become a part of the action.
And ladies and gentlemen, R3I are delighted to join this ecosystem and become part of the action, bringing research projects from all over the world to co-collaborate with SNT and the other research institutes of Luxembourg in order to achieve that rapid market adaptation for scale. It is now my great privilege to welcome to the stage my old friend and former boss around 15 years ago, Pierre Noel. Pierre and I had the great privilege to build and exit TrueSecure before it became CyberTrust, the largest cybersecurity company in the world. And today he joins me, having lived on both sides of the political divide as Chief Security Officer of Microsoft and Huawei. Today, Pierre is going to lead a panel on safety, security, and surveillance in Europe. Take it away, Pierre.
Thank you, Lisa. It's fantastic to being here. So are we ready to start? Yeah, I see Amir. I see Daryl joining. I see Cherif, and I see Mike. That's wonderful. So Lisa, as you have already done the intro on who I am and what I bring in that discussion, I think it would be best if I let our panelists to introduce themselves. And I decided to follow the sun as for the order of who should introduce oneself first. So Mike, since you are in Australia, may I suggest that you are the first one and you introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah, absolutely, Pierre, and it's wonderful to be here today. So my name is Mike. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Dronesec, and look, we are revolutionizing cybersecurity and threat intelligence for drones, otherwise known as hovering laptops. So we're on a mission to secure friendly drone fleets, and we want to protect physical assets like critical infrastructure from malicious drones. And look, we want the world to thrive on drone mobility, transport, and delivery, right? And so we want to remove some of those security blockers that are preventing an upcoming $500 billion market. Now, to do that, we need safe and secure drone operations in Europe, and that is what the Dronesec vision is all about. So thank you for having me. Look forward to the panel today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. It's not too late for you, is it?
It's not too late at all. Let's get this started.
Excellent. No, still following the sun, the next one would be Daryl in Singapore. Daryl, please introduce yourself and your organization.
Hey, Pierre, thanks for having me. Can you hear me? Is my mic good?
I can hear you very well.
Awesome, yeah. So my name is Daryl. I'm the co-founder of Augmentus. So Augmentus pioneers robotic technologies that enable easy and rapid robot programming. So our technologies completely eliminate the need for robot teaching, coding, CAD files, and robotic automation. So we drastically reduce the programming time from weeks or months down to a few minutes when it comes to robotic automation. So we work with multinational companies like Fujitsu, like Johnson & Johnson, like ST Engineering, and multiple aerospace companies as well. So very excited to be here. Thanks so much.
Well, great to have you with us. Israel, that would be Amir, still following the sun.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Amir. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Siga. We do change the paradigm in terms of cybersecurity in OT environment. We have customers all around the world in regards to critical infrastructures and manufacturing and data centers and so on. We do change the paradigm because we are seeing a level that no other company or no other system can do. We have been able to create normally AI and machine learning algorithms directly from the sensors and actuators of those very, very important critical manufacturers. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm here for any questions.
Pleasure is ours. Now, USA, Cherif.
Hey, Pierre, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for having us. So my name is Cherif. I'm the CEO of TechNext. We're an MIT-based startup. We basically help governments, companies, startups, and investors pick which technologies to invest in and not to invest in, which startups to acquire, and what to basically push in terms of R&D spending. Our first customer was the US Air Force. We're helping them on a number of fronts. And we're basically helping all companies when it comes to picking either antibiotics, type of lithium-ion cells, which coating to put on the F-35, or what type of cybersecurity to help kind of three-letter agencies and other companies to invest in. So thank you for the invitation, and happy to be part of this panel.
That's great. Great to have you all. Thank you very much. Now, from my perspective, from my humble experience, and since we are talking about safety, security, and surveillance in Europe, it strikes me that, and I will ask you to elaborate and give your perspective, but it strikes me that Europe is perhaps not as advanced, not as sophisticated in protecting their critical infrastructure compared to other countries or other nations. So I'd be very happy, and I will ask you some questions, and I hope we will have a live debate, but I would be very happy if you could share your perspective from your experience or from your vantage point. But first, let me ask you some questions and for each of you, and please step in and share your perspective. But why have you chosen Luxembourg as the European entry point for your cybersecurity or automation service? I think it's a fantastic idea, but I'd like to have your perspective as to why you chose Luxembourg.
I can start, Pierre, if it's good for you. So
yes.
The main reason we decided to choose Luxembourg is due to a very, very capable woman called Lisa. I think that she's leading, our efforts to try and pick the main gate to Europe. A part of it, I think that the government of Luxembourg and the country itself are located exactly where we want it to be. And we see it as a very, very good opportunity to start and do, good work in Europe and do it in Luxembourg. So the combination with very good partner like Lisa and R3I and the willingness of the government and the centralized country, that's a very good combination that we wanted to work with.
It's a very good point. Anyone? Other aspects you would like to share, other ideas?
So I can jump in real quick. So, a number of reasons led us to look at Luxembourg, just like Singapore for Asia or, New York for North America. Number one, talent. Very good pools of talents in Luxembourg, intangible and intangible, especially languages. Number two, the kind of political infrastructure there is really helping push startups into kind of the next generation phases compared to larger countries, larger economies. And number three, centrality. It's located in a place where it's extremely easy to get a hold of all the major economies around it. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer to start looking at that first and foremost.
Makes perfect sense indeed. All right.
Yeah, I guess I can go next, right? So I think Cherif and Amir brought up very good points regarding the ecosystem, and of course Lisa as well. I think we all know her pretty well. For me, because at Augmentus we mainly work closely with manufacturing companies. We did a lot of research, and Luxembourg has quite a thriving manufacturing ecosystem as well. So that for us is one of the key factors when it comes to where do we want to deploy our resources or capital on. And Luxembourg, with the support of the government and support of the ecosystem there, it was a pretty clear choice that was one of the areas where we can double down our efforts on. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Very good. So Daryl, you see Singapore and you see Luxembourg to be on an equal pace. That is, Singapore is the center of technology when it comes to Asia, and Luxembourg perhaps becoming the center when it comes to Europe. Can you equate these two?
I would say that in Europe, it's because the market is so much bigger, right? There's so much different countries there. Singapore is just one, and somewhat arguably speaking, Singapore is one of the technological leaders in our region, right? Southeast Asia. So that is no-brainer that Singapore is kind of the hotspot there. But in Europe side, there's so many other great countries as well. You see Germany, you see even Czech Republic and so on. But Luxembourg is kind of positioning itself at the front end as well. So that's where we see a lot of potential for us to scale beyond just the Europe region as well.
Excellent. Mike?
Yeah, and absolutely. Yeah, from our perspective, I mean, we've been a global company from day one, so we've got many customers around the world. And if you look at Europe, you've got so many potential customers or existing ones within a short journey of each other. And it wasn't just the grants that led us there. Our main focus is unmanned technology, and being able to see the EU as a concept and how they can, pitch that across the whole of Europe is just really, really lucrative in terms of just the technology and the innovation. So it's very open to startups. They like moving to agile startups and getting that play in there. And so we're very excited to work with them in that space and the coming urban air mobility type play that we're seeing there.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you've said, you all. I must add, from a cybersecurity point of view, the Luxembourg is gradually becoming in the radar, more than gradually, it's becoming in the radar for the quality of what they do. Having been in my roles as a CISO all over the world, when it comes to Europe, I increasingly recognize that Luxembourg has got things right. So I would be very much in agreement with your approach here. All right, gentlemen, next questions, if you don't mind. What are the biggest challenges for corporate and critical infrastructure at this time in the European Union? I'd like to have your opinion on that.
So if I may start, Pierre, and also, try to regards your question about why Europe is not the leading cybersecurity for critical infrastructure. I think that most of the time we need to try and find what are the risks, and how difficult would it be, to implement cybersecurity measurements. And I think that, if through the years, Europe haven't, realized that cybersecurity is a very, very important issue, because, many times we need to, we want to just move forward and not relate to cybersecurity issues. But the most critical subject is that when you are trying to implement IT measurement of cybersecurity into the OT, into the critical infrastructure, it's going to be very difficult and very hard to implement. That's why my personal belief that if you want to deal with cybersecurity in OT, in critical infrastructures, you need to speak the language of OT. You need to understand the differences between OT and IT. And I believe personally that we have a very, very good answer to those questions.
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here next, and I'll make it short. But look, what we're seeing is a challenge for critical infrastructure at the moment is that they're almost having to play military, right? There's a proxy war going on where adversaries, whether it's cybersecurity or it's drones, are instead going around the military and disemboweling them by hitting the critical infrastructure, whether it's ransomware or drones. And so it's a proxy war, right? And so they're having to defend as much as they can, almost the military. So we see that as a challenge, and that's what we're here to help them with.
That makes perfect sense indeed. All right. How do you see this new push from Europe for cloud sovereignty playing out, and how is it affecting your business, if at all? Not impacting you?
I can. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
No. Go.
In terms of cloud, we see, most of our customers use the dashboarding, the Siga solutions in the cloud. And it's very, very important to be able to understand exactly where you're locating and to be able to protect it, because, clouds means data centers, and data centers are also being, handling by ICS systems, and we need to protect it. So in terms of sovereignty and capability to be protective, I believe that regulation and entities that can actually instruct what needed to be done is very, very important also in Europe.
Okay.
I can jump in real quick there, Pierre. When it comes to kind of the sovereignty of kind of cloud in Europe and whatnot, it's a couple of comments on that. Number one, for end users like startups like us or any other commercial entities, that's a very good thing. It means more competition, more investments in the area, and ultimately, hopefully, better products and lower prices. From a political standpoint and a sovereign standpoint, that's also a very good thing for Europe. Thinking about energy crises, the grids, transportation, security, finance, all these in order to be kind of have end-to-end gates for where your data transits from and go to. Having Europe have its own infrastructure is going to be a very good thing on the global stage. It's going to diminish systemic risks. If something gets hit in the United States or in Asia, it's not going to be this impact that it has right now. So I think ultimately the short answer is a very good thing. But then, depending on the use cases, we can dive deeper into those. Excellent.
Okay. Right.
I guess I can jump in here on a quick one as well. I mean, on our end at Augmentus for robotics and automation, a lot of our systems are localized, so we don't really use the cloud to such a large extent. But on a site-wide manufacturing plant, there is a lot of cloud infrastructure that's being used. And when we speak to some of the clients, like the MNCs that we work with, they really prefer a local cloud server, just for redundancy as well. I mean, foreign soil like cloud infrastructure is good and all, right? But ultimately, they want some form of redundancy in their entire system, because downtime equals money, right? So I think, as what Cherif pointed out earlier as well, it's really good when there's more localized kind of support and cloud infrastructure. Breeds competition, breeds reliability, and breeds scalability as well. So I think that is what I've seen in the market so far. Yeah.
That's good. Good feedback. Mike, I've got a question for you. Who are the typical customers for your solutions, and what problems these customers are trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, most of our typical customers would be law enforcement, government, or critical infrastructure, as we've been talking about today. And look, the key things for the threat intelligence solution, we solve the problem of not knowing who's behind the threat. What is the threat that's going to occur to you, and the when and the how it's going to occur, right? So it solves that problem of just not knowing what's out there, and so they can plan, prepare, and mitigate when it's cybersecurity issues within drones, or it can be a malicious drone itself. And in terms of cybersecurity, look, that's something where you want your next meal delivered by drones, or you want major transportation happening around urban sprawl, $500 billion worth of investment in the next few years. And that's the type of thing where if you have hijacking of drones happening, they're very quickly going to remove all the regulatory, ideas that we're swirling around to enable that to happen, right? So we don't want our drones being hijacked. We don't want our large, smart cities models being affected by vulnerabilities, and the grounding of those drones, or big reports in the brand new front page of the news, right? So we're here to protect that. And so our customers are obviously, often looking for assurance against that. They're looking to protect their investments against that type of threat. And of course, they're looking for outcomes, right? They want to focus on innovation whilst not having to worry about the security. We can handle that security for them.
That's pretty compelling. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Cherif, if you allow me, I'm very interested in your organization, in company. I believe there are many different use cases for your technology. Could you elaborate a bit more about which industries you are currently engaged with, and their motivations?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the primary inputs to our analyses is the patent data. So we're technology agnostic. You look at anything from antibiotics to fuel to paint to literally anything you can think of. Our customers range from pharmaceutical companies to energy companies to transportation companies and so on. Different use cases differ. So number one, if you're a VC fund or any capital holder or corporate VC arm, we can help you analyze different startups, and we do what we call technological due diligence, showing you how fast certain technologies are improving at versus the next best thing. We recently did an interesting case that I can send you offline if you're interested to see how we put these reports and analyze startups. Number two, the second angle is we obviously have startups themselves. So if you're Philips, Intel, Amazon, and you have $10, $15 billion in R&D, and you're trying to pick between 3 different types of, if you're Tesla, lithium-ion batteries, we can help tell you which ones are going to be improving faster and is going to get to certain benefit metrics by a certain time. Number three, if you're after corporations and capital holders, if you're governments, so big research labs from NASA to JPL to Johns Hopkins University or the DoD in the United States. These have very long-term views and invest large amounts of capital. And if you can really improve the ROI on that, it can be quite big gains. And we have a wide range of potential applications. Our basic kind of insights is the improvement rate for any technology. So if you're familiar with Moore's law for semiconductors, you basically expand the concept of Moore's law to any technology, whether it be drones, security, energy, robots, pick your technology, we can tell you how fast that is improving at.
That's quite cool. I love it. Daryl, now you have a pretty impressive and cool solution. I really like what I'm seeing here. Can you elaborate how Augmentus helps improve safety, security, or surveillance, since this is the topic of our session?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for Augmentus wise, we don't really dabble too much into the security side. For us, we mostly involve in terms of safety as well as collaboration across the robots and the human. So I think when people talk a lot about automation, they think a lot about robots replacing human workers, right? But the reality of today is that when it comes to more dynamic and flexible automation lines, that is very common. Around 60% of the world's automation requires some form of flexibility. It means that there's some part-to-part variation, some changes, and that results in the need for humans to be in the loop. That's what we call them. So for us, our system is built for human collaboration with the robots. So it means safety is number one. We want to make sure that the robot moves at a certain speed. We don't want it when it collides. There's certain sum of feedback that makes sure that there's some safety protocols in place and so on as well. And the second one is that we want to upskill the current workforce. So currently right now, robots are very difficult to program, very fragmented. Our system allows an operator level, so someone with very little expertise, no coding, using a graphical interface, you're able to program these robotic systems within a few minutes instead of a few weeks, right? So downtime is reduced significantly, safety is increased, speed is increased, and so on as well. Yeah. So that's how we see ourselves in the market.
Well, makes perfect sense. Thank you very much. Amir, why does cybersecurity for OT need to have innovative and different solutions than cybersecurity for IT? How different should it be?
That's exactly the question I'm asking myself for the last, 20 years. It's due to, the differences between, especially the assets. When you are thinking about an IT environment, you will think about data. That's why it's called information technology, IT.
Yeah.
But when we are moving to the OT, to the operation technology, the main assets, the main critical assets are, the pumps, the valves, the turbines, the reservoirs of waters, and they need, and they doesn't speak the language of protocols and data. They are purely electrical. So in order to have, the right solution in terms of cybersecurity, you need to analyze what are your critical assets. And when you analyze it and they are speaking the language of sensors and actuators, that's exactly where you want to be, and that's what we are doing.
That makes sense. Of course, that seems very logical. Now, gentlemen, to the best of my knowledge, I think we've got to close this session, this panel, in 30 seconds. Would any of you or all of you want to say one last thing before we close this session, which my humble opinion is very full of great information. I really like to be here with you. Would you have anything to share?
Just to say thank you very much for the opportunity. This is a very important stage that we have been humbled, to have for the government of Luxembourg and R3I. Thank you very much for the opportunity and for the time.
Very well said. All right, I think we can wrap it up. It's been a great pleasure having you. Thank you very much to all of you. Lisa, may I say over to you?
Fantastic. Thank you, Pierre. What an inspiring group of speakers who are making a tangible contribution to the safety, security, and surveillance of the European market and beyond. It's my great pleasure now to walk into the realm of medtech. And as you know, here at the House of X, we have a House of Medtech which specializes in thus last mile clinical studies in order to help our founders forge their CE mark and transverse across the European Union and back into their home markets. 80% of medtech is indeed imported. And so the European Union plays a critical role in the actual translation of our research into the Asian economies. We have a unique opportunity. In the Asia Pacific, we have now committed and have co-developed with industry ethical principles in healthcare. The ethical principles in healthcare is helping to build transparent, resilient healthcare systems through a set of shared principles that promote ethical decision-making and behaviors. But is it enough? I'd like to hand this panel over to my colleague, Owen Reynolds. But before I do so, a tribute to our partners at Fingerprint for Success, who support us in building diverse, equitable, and inclusive teams across our nations. Thank you, Catherine.
There's a lot of focus on hard skills, so there's a lot of focus on technical skills. But at a company, what's absolutely critical is communications, the soft skills, the things that most companies don't spend enough time focusing on. But they're the things that build up great teams, they're the things that build up great companies. And so it's been absolutely critical for us to be focusing on all these sorts of things. And FRS has been an amazing way to help do that.
Now, Fingerprint for Success is our secret sauce at R3I, helping us to build inclusive, equitable and diverse teams. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Owen Reynolds, who has sat on the other side of the table inside the regulator and today sits inside Expon Capital, investing in digital health technologies. Owen, the floor's yours.
Thanks so much, Lisa, for having me join in. I'm right at Expon Capital here in Luxembourg. We have two funds, one that's focused on early stage companies in Luxembourg and another that's focused on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And exactly, I used to be a regulator, so I'm going to moderate this panel instead of putting my finger on the scale. And we'll have a bit of a debate between two sides. One side is going to be asking whether we should be adding more regulation specifically to encourage ethics in the healthcare industry. And that on that side, we'll have Jiwon, Alexandre, and Hannafiah. And against the regulation, we'll be pitting this side against Anthony and Brian and potentially Sarah if we see her on board. And we'll dive in a little bit to decide or have them tell us rather whether what direction we should go in. So in the context is partially the difference between digital ethics. There's more of a structure in the ASEAN region compared to Europe, even though there are projects like Gaia X, for example, and several big tech companies have also tried to create an ethical map or ethical roadmap for the healthcare industry in particular. So without further ado, I'll let the pro-regulation team start off by introducing themselves. Jiwon, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Jiwon Park, founder and CEO of a femtech company, SAIB & Co. SAIB is a sexual wellness brand providing women safe-to-use contraceptives and intimate hygiene products, helping them to maintain their sexual and reproductive health. Our female-friendly brand provides a safe space for women and delivers high-quality products using only healthy and natural ingredients, unlike other major brands targeting men and containing harmful ingredients, including cancer-causing chemicals. SAIB aims to normalize the perception of sexual wellness, redefining them as a natural and healthy part of life. Our current R&D include antibacterial lubricant solution, preventing major STIs, and rapid diagnostic kits for STIs. Today, I'm on a pro side, and I think regulation is necessary evil. While it gives startups like us really hard time, it sets up the fair ground for everyone and ensuring the protection of uncompromisable values. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexandre, you're up next.
Sure. Alexandre, I'm the founder and CEO of Nanonap. We are changing the way you use and rest your brain. By improving your sleep, we can help you do more with your brain for sure, but reduce the risk of a health issue, and the overall life quality is way improved thanks to our electrical stimulation. Same as Jan, we see, and we are the first target of this regulation with bisymmetrical regulation, and we aim for a better, more general regulation, because we can see that there is a lot to do for supplement, for example.
Great. Hannafiah, if you can give a bit of an intro.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Owen. I'm Hannafiah Youssef from Robopreneur. I'm the CEO and also the co-founder of this company. And our company is a service robotic company. And we are providing robotics, automation, also AI solution for service industry, also healthcare industry. In the healthcare industry segment, we have two products. We have a robotic wheelchair system that have bringing greater autonomy and also independency for elderly people and also for people with physical disability. And the second product, we have a robotic tele-rehab system for autism children. And this is a patented technology, and it helps reduce the autistic behavior in autism children by 20%. So we are looking forward for this technology to be leveraged and used across the region.
Great, thank you. And then Anthony.
Thanks, Owen. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stratificare. Stratificare is a medical diagnostic company from Singapore, founded with the vision to empower personalized medicine for tomorrow. We specialize in developing first-mover medical diagnostics that can predict disease severity and treatment outcomes. We are pioneering a new development platform to accelerate TRL4 technologies to market 70% faster, but at a quarter of the cost. And we work with the largest pharmas, such as Roche and AstraZeneca. Our current pipeline includes the world's first severe dengue prediction test, which can tell whether a patient will develop life-threatening complications and require hospitalization, and a companion diagnostic test to tell whether a liver cancer patient after going localized radiation therapy, the therapy can help to stop his or her spread of the cancer. So we intend to continue to extend our pipeline by 3 products every year and to grow our addressable market by $10 billion year on year. Thank you.
Great. So that's the intro to the panel. And Jiwon, maybe I can start with you and asking, as a founder of a company serving a tough and intimate portion of the of healthcare, what do you think is the main driver for regulation in the industry to make sure that digital transformation can be ethical?
So when dealing with sexual and reproductive health, I think the data privacy and transparency is the key, because it's very personal and sensitive data. And due to the social stigma around sex, people, especially women, find it very hard talking about sexual wellness or even visiting gynecologists to seek for professional help. And now many women use like a mobile application to record and track their menstrual cycle, ovulation, and sexual activities. And no one wants their intimate data to be shared with anyone else. To give you an example, like earlier this year, a popular period and fertility tracking app with more than 100 billion users was accused of sharing the private health information with third parties, including Facebook and Google, allowing them to use this sensitive data for targeted advertising. This happened despite the fact the company told the user their information was kept private. So these kind of apps that collects and use sensitive health information can provide valuable services for users, but consumers need to be able to trust this app and be in charge of their own data, and whether they allow their data to be shared or to what extent. So being able to control their own data and service providers have to be transparent about how they are using the user data. As a user, it's almost impossible to know whether their data is being shared or leaked without their consent. And I think we need the regulatory guidance and monitoring to check whether developers of these healthcare apps are keeping their promises and handling sensitive information responsibly.
I think that's a very good industry to start with, because it does provide both barriers to entry and barriers to communicate to begin with. So maybe regulation can be part of the on-ramp to encourage more people to choose, whether it's apps or direct traditional providers, but more people to get involved with their healthcare at an earlier stage before they experience health problems and potentially avoiding some of the costs and some of the long-term consequences. So shifting a bit, Alexandre, in your industry, in particular in neurology and the neural data you're dealing with on a daily basis, and also the models that you build on top of them, are you also similarly worried that that either the breaches that have been out there will basically be sending too much information on individuals, and is that why you're pushing for regulation as well? Is that just me, or
yeah, sorry. Thanks. Sorry, Owen. The industry of the brain tech as it is today looked like internet in the 90s, meaning that we have a whole potential to explore because we know to do small things really efficiently, but because it's our brain, there is tremendous possibilities. And without regulation, well, you will have exactly the same problem that we had with internet. You will have scam, you will have privacy breach and things like this. As soon as you look at the overall picture, not having any regulation or the tiny, because it's really a duplicate of the drug regulation that we have today, not a real brain tech one, you are missing the overall scheme. Today, we are able to see if you will be sick, if you have any disease behind without any symptoms. We can know what you're doing, what is your habits, what you are eating, anything. We can know pretty much anything just by looking at your brain activity and your sleep. With that, I can pretty much know all your life. And without regulation, I can, of course, pinpoint some ads at the right moment on the right spot. But more dangerously, I can offer you to gather some specific supplement to help you with your brain intensive activities or things like this. And because it's not regulated, they might have some potential side effect, let's say, that will not be that good, let's say. So okay. a better regulation will prevent the same thing that we had with internet, and I'm really praying for it.
And Hannafiah, do you also feel like the same thing is true especially in the special needs children that you mentioned before?
Yeah, for us actually, because you are dealing with a very typical and specific symptom of children's. The one that we are working on, autism spectrum, is actually we need two level of ethical. One is on the ethical committee approval, make sure that we have sufficient subject matters and also individual that we have tested with our system. And then the second level is on the ethical on sharing the data among children with autism, where we need to be careful because every children have their individual characteristics. And we need to be careful on sharing those informations in terms of their symptom and also for medical purpose. And then we need to always get the guardian's consent and so on. So in terms of getting the ethical to be more transparent and also to help to push forward the technology in order to benefit both sides, the developer, the technology provider, and also the user. I think we need to have some sort of platform to connect between two, while maintaining their individual information, also the typical symptom of the autism, for example. And we have, I mean, this process is quite long, and but in order to make sure that the technology is will be benefit to the end user, we need to go through the process. And I think there are still a gap between countries in terms of dealing with ethical kind of policy, and it's good if we have some sort of AI technology that able to simplify and also to protect the data protection for individuals.
Actually, I think you hit the divide. There's two parts that all three of you talked about. One is the data protection, and the other is the actual ethics itself. So maybe, Anthony, can you dive into why maybe regulation may not be needed, and maybe the ethics are substantial enough, but maybe it's more of a data policy issue. And could you tell me maybe whether that might be the case?
So I think for me personally, what I feel is that it's always a balance. There's like you can't entirely do without ethics or regulations, and you can't like say like put everything in, because it's like I feel that currently with whatever we have right now, wherever, say, when we are collecting patient data or clinical data, it's always through a proper with proper ethics approval and in a proper clinical study or a clinical trial. And so most of the data that comes to us, like as diagnostic developer, they usually anonymized data, so we don't have the legend and we can't really link it back to individual patients. So I would think that currently with whatever safeguards we have is actually already sufficient. Any more that we throw in, it may start to hamper the progress of like the development of new diagnostic tools or new healthcare tools and so on.
So you do think it's more of a structural issue than an ethical issue in and of itself. Is there anyone that actually thinks that there may be enough ethical behavior in the industry already? And for example, I'll mention the Hippocratic Oath, which applies to the healthcare industry, or should. And one of the old versions is that if it be what should not be published abroad, I will never divulge, holding such things to be holy secrets. So should the healthcare industry and healthcare providers already be sensitive to this and be pushing for data quality and ethics, as well as data protection of their patients? Does anyone want to dive into that? Maybe Anthony.
I will go further.
Okay, Alexandre.
I will go further, saying that not only health tech but wellness too, because the frontier between the two is really tiny, and both should have this oath of doing the right thing. So I'm definitely with you on this, Owen, but I will extend it to the wellness too.
Great. Well, we'll have to leave it at that for today, but thank you so much for fleshing out the two sides. This is an ongoing debate for the entire industry, so definitely just the tip of the iceberg here. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Owen. Great to have you with us here at the House of DeepTech, and a great privilege to have the opportunity to work with you in the market. I'd now like to draw this panel to a close, and we're going to move to the concept of value-based care, a topic that I'm deeply passionate about given my role in the futures of hospital innovation at Singapore Management University. But before I do so, a tribute to our ecosystem collaborators. Fantastic. And it's my great privilege to welcome today Stephanie Silvestri. Stephanie plays a unique role in the startup development ecosystem in Luxinnovation. And I have to confess, I found my way to Luxembourg through Lux Fit for Start. Not only did I compete for a prized place for Stratificare, one of the panelists you just saw earlier, but I had the great privilege to meet Matias from ViewMind, who will join us here today on the panel, where we later became an investor. So you never know who you might meet and what may happen. I've since moved my entire family to Luxembourg and have the great privilege to also play a role in the ecosystem. So thank you, Stephanie, for shepherding our founders so beautifully into the ecosystem. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for these welcoming words, and thank you also for having me today. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Luxembourg Calling DeepTech Showcase event. My name is Stephanie Silvestri. I'm Senior Advisor in the Startup Exploration Department at Luxinnovation, which is the Luxembourg's national innovation agency. And it's a great pleasure to moderate this panel on transforming healthcare to value-based care. We really do have a very diverse panel here with us today. And before diving deep into the topic of value-based care, I would like to first leave the floor to our panelists to give them the chance to do a quick warm introduction by themselves. So as I can see that Matias, he's on the first one on the top of my screen. So Matias, do you want to go first?
Of course, Stephanie, and thanks for the introduction, and thanks, Lisa, for asking us to join. It's a pleasure, as usual. My name is Matias Shultz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of BioMine, where we develop a digital biomarker to early screen for Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and many neurodegenerative diseases using VR technology, eye tracking, and artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much. Rachel?
Hi, Stephanie and everyone. I'm Rachel, the founder and CTO of Miracle. We have a solution for patients with respiratory conditions like asthma and COPD that helps them to take their medication more effectively and more consistently, and at the same time collect data that can help doctors evaluate progress and adjust their treatment more effectively. And thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel today.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Let's move to Jeremy from Nanonap.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy. I'm the co-founder and president of Nanonap. As a quick introduction, Nanonap is an employee wellness solution for forward-thinking corporates and insurers that guarantees cost savings from quantified physical and mental health improvement. And we do this through a digital therapeutics intervention.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And I think last but not least, we have Levana from Nala Genetics, but I do not see her right now in the screen, but it doesn't matter. We will have the chance to get introduced to her also in a second. But yes, in order to kick off with the discussion on value-based care in Europe, I think it's a topic that is really heavily discussed nowadays. Healthcare systems around the world are really under pressure in order to spend their resources wisely and more efficiently. But still, there's no really agreed and single definition about value-based care is and what it means actually and to whom. So what I would like to ask each one of you is to get your idea of what value-based care is, and more specifically, how your company contributes to it. Maybe Jeremy, we can kick off with you.
Sure, thanks, Stephanie. You're right. I think there are many definitions for value-based care, and I guess without getting too academic, I think what resonates most for me is thinking about how we align the stakeholders across the system, because I think a lot of the issues with healthcare today, whether they're digital or traditional systems, is because the structures around it of how we think about healthcare, how we analyze the data, how we build a health economics model, as well as then how do we create our reimbursement systems, create a lot of misaligned incentives. So for me, value-based care is really about how do we align everyone together and really putting the patient in the center who matters most. And this could be a lot more about anchoring up on outcomes that truly matters, especially to the patient. So patient-reported health outcome measures, but also then how do we think about care models that optimize for the outcomes that is at the right setting, at the right level as well for the patient.
Thank you very much. Naluri, maybe you can explain us a bit more about how Naluri contributes to the value-based care approach.
Sure. So I think the way we have tried to tackle the solution is to try and deliver a multidisciplinary intervention approach to people with cardiometabolic conditions. So this would be obesity or diabetes or high blood pressure, together with mental health problems, and take this in a very integrated way, because there's a lot of overlap across these conditions. And we know from traditional healthcare systems where they've done multidisciplinary approach, it has created better outcomes at a much lower cost. We are trying to mimic that in a digital intervention path so you can be more scalable. And because we can get data, we can create decision support tools from machine learning and AI to increase the productivity of the health coaches, not to replace them, but really to sort of amplify the reach of the experts there to deliver much better coordinated care.
Thank you very much for these explanations. Matias, what about ViewMind and your view on value-based care?
Perfect. For me, value-based care shouldn't exist if it wasn't for the initial kind of approach to medicine, or couldn't have existed, which is fee-for-service, right? In the past, what happened is that providers were financially rewarded for the quantity of tests and treatments rather than for the quality of the treatments, right? And this obviously led to unnecessary tests, unnecessary treatments, when they could have done, for example, less invasive, less expensive options that were available and possibly more desirable. And this is known as physician-centric healthcare, right? And on the other hand, we got value-based care, which is the opposite, is patient-centered care, where, as Jeremy said, we measure always the patient outcome, the health outcome of the treatment, which brings a more holistic and collaborative way of treating patients. There is a very clear example that I always talk about when we speak about value-based care, which is done in the US, and it's called the readmission reduction program, where literally payers pay less to the hospitals who have more readmissions. So this shows that in a way, the value-based care is changing the paradigm from taking as many tests as you can to preventing, right? And where does one fit on all this? How can you measure the outcome of a treatment if you don't have the right tools? If you don't have something that's non-invasive, that's accurate, that can go all across the continuum, that is non-culturally biased, educationally biased, age biased, and so on. And that is where ViewMind goes. ViewMind helps the physicians to quantify the impact of treatment, to do the right diagnosis, and to follow the patient all across the treatment pathway.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Matias. Rachel, let's move next to you.
Sure. Yes, I agree with both Jeremy and Matias. And yes, the focus is on the patient and on the outcome rather than rather than services, right? But we have come from a place where it's a one-size-fits-all because there's no doctor that can treat every patient personally. And as we move to having more data and we're collecting all this data, doctors are now equipped with more information and analysis that can make personalized treatment more possible. So what we do in Miracle is that we have a patient-centric solution. It is a device that patients actually bring home with them. And with that, we can also track their behavior. And this is something that doctors have and healthcare professionals have never had an opportunity to get hold of. And all this could be then related to the outcome that they're seeing, and from there to be able to prescribe more effectively. And in the end of the day, it's actually to determine how your patient is reacting to a particular dose of medication. And with only seeing, if you're only seeing your patient once in 6 months for 15 minutes, you're not going to get a full view of what's happening. But with our solution, a device, the doctor will be able to have, a broad range of information and data that they can tap into. And I think for us particularly, we are very focused on the most vulnerable, so the very young and the very old, who may not be so well versed in communicating with doctors in the first place. So by tracking all this and monitoring all the information, we can better serve the more vulnerable. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Really glad that we have solutions like yours in the market, helping us with our help. Thank you so much, Levana. Welcome. It's great to have you also here now with us, with the other panelists. Maybe you can also quickly introduce yourself and tell us how Genetics contributes to the value-based care approach.
Yeah, happy to. Sorry about the technical issue earlier. My name is Levy. I'm the co-founder and CEO for Genetics. And Genetics is a genetics company that focuses on combining genetics and real-world evidence to build more impactful genetic screening programs, especially in developing countries where data is quite scarce. And the company has 4 product pillars right now, which is the clinical decision support, the genetic testing kits and services, knowledge base and algorithms to generate clinically actionable reports, and finally also patient engagement. So the type of projects that we do generally involves a lot of patients. Generally, this is a project where we would genotype a lot of patients and try to see which prevention we can do on a population basis. So value-based care is a trend that precedes all of these initiatives. Without it, there's no use for prevention. Like the others have mentioned, without it, there wouldn't be even any incentive to actually think about these type of approaches before. So what we do is basically to be able to focus a lot on germline genotyping, which means characteristics or mutations that you are born with, and embed that information within the clinical workflow whenever it's necessary for a doctor to make an actionable recommendation. So if someone has a risk for something, for a drug response, we will trigger that information in the electronic health record system whenever someone is about to be prescribed that medication using a set of APIs. So I think this is absolutely important and again only made possible because of the advent of value-based care.
Thank you very much, Limana. I think based on what you just all described, we can, I think, all agree on one thing, that is that all your companies are very digital-driven, data-driven. You are very modern companies. And therefore, I would like also to get your thoughts on how digitalization, tech companies in general, are really accelerating this transformation from the traditional healthcare approach to the more value-based system. And maybe we can start with you, Jeremy, on getting your thoughts on this.
Sure. So I think it's probably 2 parts, right? One is companies that were created in this era, right, having a much more digital first approach. But also I think it's driven by where we are as the world today, because of the explosion of connectivity, the explosion of soft cloud architecture and processing power. It only enables sort of companies like ours to exist today. I think why there is probably an acceleration of some of these being adopted and not being incubated within, I guess, the traditional stalwarts of like the healthcare industry, the hospitals, the big insurance companies, and all of that. I think they struggle with, I guess, the classic barriers, right, of a large company not putting enough resources to drive large innovations like this. And it also probably from their standpoint, it's easy to kind of see how the smaller companies pan out over time before they make a huge investment. So I think the benefit of smaller startups like ours has always just been more about speed and flexibility, and really the most important thing is being able to steer the company making quite large decisions day to day that a large company can. And I think that really translates to repeated high iteration of testing that reaches I guess a better solution in a much shorter time than a larger company could.
Indeed. Levana, would you say that now during the crisis, especially with COVID, with the pandemic, that this even has accelerated more? That there was like a real acceleration from one system to the other?
Yes and no. I think to a certain degree, it depends on 2 behavior changes or perspective changes, one from the payer side and then maybe also from the provider side and then from the patient side. I think for the patient side, for sure, with COVID-19, there's just a surge of wanting to be a little bit more connected to wellness, prevention, making that as a center of attention and is in everyone's minds. From the provider side, there's a lot of interest in being able to, I guess, comply or supply with all these like new patient awareness for wellness. I think it's absolutely there, especially for lab testing. For example, in Indonesia, I think the qPCR capabilities now is 700 or 800 labs, whereas previously maybe it's about 30, 40. So the increase has just been tremendous. And then, but on the payer side, I think it's still a little bit hard for COVID. So I think, and I think the payer side is actually the most important aspect for long-term change because it drives incentives. So, for example, in the U.S., when telemedicine was reimbursed, right, for as part of a CPT code, I think if it stays like that, then all telemedicine will survive for a long time. But in other markets, like for example, in developing markets where those type of shift is not big enough, right, and doesn't impact the payer level, maybe it's seen more as a fad and then it goes away. So that's I guess the scare, right? Like whether or not it moves organizations big enough to actually shift the trend towards a little bit closer to value-based care. And I think that involves a lot in the payer sense.
Interesting to hear. We are already nearly coming to an end, but I do have a last quick question is, especially as you have a footprint in Luxembourg, but also Europe in general, and then also a presence in other countries. How do you feel does you differ from other countries, and how does this impact you also as a company? Maybe Matias, you can give us some ideas here.
Yes, absolutely. I'll keep it short, but ViewMine is actually located in Latin America, in Argentina, and other countries in Latam. We are in Luxembourg and going to Europe from there. And we are in the United States. So we got quite a good idea. We're transitioning into Asia as well. One of the biggest differences, and I think the most important one, is who is paying, right? Is the government paying for something, or is it a private payer? If it's a private payer, at least in Latin America and in many other countries, they care about the short-term kind of benefits. If you add a cost, but save you in the long term, that's going to be dangerous because when they do the board meeting at the end of the year, they will see that they have spent more money, even though some outcomes might be better. This changes a lot, obviously, with value-based care. But if it's the government, you can see that in many occasions, they take a much long-term kind of initiative. And I think I'm done with the time.
Perfectly in time, as always. You're used to it already in Fit for a Start. No, but indeed, we're already out of time. But I really would like to thank you all for your contribution, for these valuable insights that you gave us into this topic of value-based care. And I also would like to thank everyone else for joining this session. Stay connected. There will be some other panels following this one, and very interesting to you, of course. So thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
What a fantastic panel we've had on value-based care. And we're now going to welcome my esteemed Women in VC collaborator, Emily Wang, to the stage. Emily joins us from Loom Capital. But before we do, a tribute to our collaborating partners.
CC, activate.
How can I assist you today?
Find me the best location for fintech development. Sissy, I asked you to find the best location for fintech. Are you kidding me? I'm getting a programmer.
Financial developer, grow business.
Calm down.
Forgive me.
Now, from the top, slowly. Tell me more about Luxembourg.
In the Eurozone, Luxembourg is the #1 financial center, as well as the second largest fund management center in the world. Located between Germany and France, the biggest market in Europe, and ideally placed to serve as gateway to Europe. It is the perfect location to grow and develop business internationally. But I'm only a computer. What do I know? Hear from your own kind what Luxembourg has to offer.
Being based in Luxembourg is great on a geographical point of view, because you've got all the key players on the market here.
Luxembourg has a well-established, vibrant venture capital environment.
To create MangoPay, we needed an e-money issuer license, and Luxembourg was the obvious choice.
You can test a product here, and if it works here, you've got a good chance of making sure your product will work abroad as well.
what about innovation and resources?
The government is very responsive and operates a regulated framework that is open to innovation.
On the financial technology world, what I see is a very open attitude from the Luxembourg authorities.
We managed to go through the whole regulation process and to get the financial sector license in 6 months. The financial industry here would look first at innovation before looking at the size of your company.
We were able to build a huge network of banking partners to offer our products in all Europe.
But to support these ideas on a tech level, you're gonna need some serious hardware.
So you have this low latency to other European countries, and so you can set up your business and host it on the servers over here in Luxembourg.
We are a small company, but we got huge needs in terms of data center and security. We found the perfect match.
For the last 30 years, Luxembourg has had a vibrant fintech industry based around fund management, security of money, reliability, the fiscal regime, and that can benefit any startup in the fintech world.
I get it. You were right. Luxembourg is a great fintech option. Let's go have a look.
Already done. During my presentation, I've been uploading myself to one of Luxembourg's data centers. I think my AI will be more comfortable there.
Fantastic, and welcome Emily to the stage. Emily joins us from Loom Capital in the US. I'm going to hand the panel over to you, Emily.
Thank you, host. Hello, everyone. This is Emily. I'm very excited to be the moderator for this event. We have 4 speakers for today's session. Before we jump into the discussion topics, I'd love to have you introduce yourself. How about we start with Maria?
Hi, Emily. Hi, everyone. This is Maria Messina. I'm co-founder and CEO of DACO. DACO is a fintech startup. We incorporated DACO last year, so we are in our early stage, but our focus are health and financial wellness services. We launched DACO Wellbeing, a one-stop platform that enables convenient access to health and financial wellness services in emerging markets, mainly for SMEs, employees, and their families. We are running pilots in Cambodia, in Southeast Asia, but now we are looking forward to expand our solution beyond finance, also to in the healthcare side of our solution. And so we are keen to meet potential partners to work with us. And so very keen about today's discussion and meet people, the audience, even in our booth.
Thank you for the intro. Next, how about Tan?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tan Nguyen, co-founder and CEO of Detection. We are a security startup based in Melbourne, Australia. And we help businesses that rely on SaaS solutions like Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, you name it, to use them with security confidence and save money in the process.
Great to have you here. Rosalie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, I run CXA. We are an employee benefits platform with a company-funded wallet that is connected to insurance companies as well as early detection, disease management, the clinics and hospitals, the telemedicine, as well as wellness preventers.
Thank you. Great to have you all here. I'm really excited to hear your insight about today's topic, InsurTech and FinTech in the friction-free economy. So my first question for you is, in your opinion, how has the COVID pandemic impacted the friction-free economy concept? And how has it impacted your business? If yes, if it has impacted your business, in what ways? any speaker wants to jump in first?
I can start. I used to own insurance brokers. And what we found is during COVID and the pandemic, people didn't want to see brokers. But what happened is our tech business, white label by insurance company, really accelerated because insurers discovered that no one wanted to see their agents. And for their bank partners, no one was walking into the bank branches. So we actually, COVID really helped our business. I sold off all my brokers, invested all the money, doubled down on enabling the insurers. And the first one that launched in Hong Kong, HSBC, they onboarded 200 different companies in 6 months. During COVID, despite no one walking into their bank branches, or seeing their agents. So we onboarded 80,000 users during severe lockdown. So it was great for us.
Well, I would say that the pandemic has impacted in a positive way, I think, the friction-free economy. And definitely the pandemic is leading to increased access and need for digital services, even in financial services. At the beginning, probably, of the pandemic, we were just unprepared. But after 1 year of being digital and working from home, all this forced everyone and all the businesses to review internal processes and making them more frictionless. So being in a digital environment means also that you have to find new ways and tools, not only to streamline internal processes, but also to keep high the engagement with the employees and your teams. At DACO, we aim to offer a full digital service journey where the onboarding and engagement starts from the employment relationship and through payroll services. So the shift to digital payroll services is something that is not common yet in the markets that we are targeting. We are finding that many companies are still handling the payroll services through an Excel file, or many employees are paid in cash. So definitely these are friction points that we aim to remove. And right now we are more focused on the onboarding and engagement process to offer more value, not only to our users, but also to our corporate partners.
Yeah, so, as a security company, obviously the pandemic has presented opportunities as well as challenges for our industry. So, we're in an era of cloud adoption. So definitely digital transformation has been accelerated voluntarily or involuntarily by this whole pandemic. And many companies have adopted and are adopting SaaS solutions like 365, Salesforce, Slack, and Zoom, and you name it. So the whole world now currently consumes about $145 billion or so annually of SaaS products. And over 2/3 of businesses already rely almost exclusively on the SaaS products to run their operations. So through the friction-free economy lenses, SaaS dramatically reduces capital outlays to run businesses and time to benefit for a lot of organizations. And it's very easy for a business to try a new SaaS app. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, whatever, it's not a problem. So unlike the past where the ownership of tech solutions is no longer centralized, but decentralized across various business units, when an individual or small group inside an organization can make a decision to try a new SaaS application, adopt it. So in this phenomenon, what's happening, however, is that the rate of SaaS adoption is faster than the ability of organizations to keep track and manage risks. And as we see, most businesses are underskilled and understaffed and under-resourced in security to cope with the rising security risk profiles. So that presents an opportunity and a challenge for us. And that's what it was solving for. As a company, we simplify security for this new generation of SaaS-first organizations by providing them with the data insights that business people can understand, and easy fixes for them to reduce risk and save money.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. Transitioning to hearing your insight about disruption to the financial markets, Rosalind, how do you keep your company stay relevant and competitive?
What we found during COVID was a lot of people not only didn't want to see anyone related to insurance, but they also didn't want to go into the clinics or the hospitals. So we actually connected with many of the telemedicine players so that the drugs could be delivered to their homes and they could have a teledoc consultation. But we also added mental health because of all the mental health worries. We saw a surge there. The other thing that we saw a surge in to stay competitive was once COVID opened up and the travel lanes started, we added pre-departure COVID tests and travel insurance and the ability to have your vaccination and your test records on our app. So we were the app of record. And so for one bank, we actually won them 10,000 new clients as it was opening up. The other thing we did to stay competitive was that a lot of firms couldn't get their employees to engage on health. So we built step challenge competition, but also everyone can upload pictures of their exercises, their meditation, their home life, and not just Zoom, right? It's really posting all your exercising. But of course, we got a lot of food pictures and they were not all healthy food pictures. So, employees were able to engage at least 24 minutes a day and also win money in their company-funded wallet for the most challenges or the best pictures or the most steps and the most weight loss.
That's great to hear. We have a new solutions where allow employees to engage with the company, sharing their exercise experience. It's great. How about Maria? How do you keep companies stay competitive and relevant to this new edge of the market?
Yeah, well, definitely to me, in order to stay relevant and competitive, it's very important to be more consumer-centric. So now digital connectivity has raised consumer expectation. Now consumers have more power and voice, even more than even before. So at DACO, we help users in their health and well-being journey by getting a loan quickly in a matter of a few days instead of a month or weeks. We aim to improve financial education by with a more personalized engagement and with targeted product recommendation. We aim to help them in buying insurance products and to be better prepared for the future. So if the digital journey is not friction-free, the consumers, of course, will stop their purchase and will switch the brands. So as a result, for us, the consumer experience and even the business model is really relevant and important. And these are right now are the areas where we are more focused.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, please, Tan, want to hear your thoughts on this as well. You also mentioned the pandemic has, created opportunities and also challenges. So I want to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, just similarly to what Maria said, we to stay competitive, we have been really, as a company, laser focused on customers' needs, right? Because customers are inundated with information. So when it comes to security, most of our customer focus is the mid-market, the SMEs and the mid-market businesses. They're inundated with a lot of information, with a lot of tasks. The IT and security, colleagues in these companies wear multiple hats. So we do not want to flush them with more information and more work, more bad news that they already can't deal with. So what we have focused on is actually less is more of our customers, and in that I mean, with the vast amount of data out there, we don't want to present another dashboard that's full of serving more or being the bearer of bad news. We distill the information out there and contextualizing the risks in such a way that people can make the data insights actionable for them immediately. And it doesn't require the users to have security skills in order to operate, in order to use our tools, because we believe that in this modern era, it's the business people that procure and manage their system and their solutions, and hence we need to make security simple enough for people to understand, because if people don't understand it, they wouldn't care about it. And again, at a higher level, to stay competitive in this pandemic, we focus on three things: simplicity, usability, and actionability in our solution for our customers.
Great insight here. So let's see, we move 10 years later, fast forward to the future, this insurtech, fintech in the friction-free economy. What is your ideal world?
I can continue, I guess. So at the moment, you can. So the technology that we're building is one that can help the customer continuously assess the security posture, the true risk of their organization based on the health and the configuration of their systems, their humans, and their endpoints. And the ability to do this can reduce the information asymmetry when it comes to security posture risk. And because we can provide the true continuous risk assessments of organization security posture, we can help reduce supply chains risk when it comes to continuously assess their vendor security risk. Because we all know in a supply chain now, parties are integrated and data flows, whether you're a big or a small organization, data flows. And the security posture of a supply chain is only as strong as that of their weakest links. So if you look at it from the supply chain risk, definitely that's where we think we can take our technology into the future and help supply chain reduce risk. And from an insurtech perspective, we can help insurance underwriters, for example, to better assess premiums and covers based on understanding or having a view of the continuous security posture of the insured. And hence, they are able to better offer policies for our customers, especially for the SMEs and the mid-markets. What we are seeing today in the cyber insurance market is premiums have skyrocketed, whereas the policies available for the SMEs and the mid-market customers are not so abundant. That's because of the lack of data. That's because of the information asymmetry. What insurance are looking for is to be able to say yes to more SMEs and mid-market customers, looking for better coverage. But the higher coverage limits are currently offered, but without being able to assess the risk of potential customers. The insurance companies will not be able to offer them to customers at all, or offer them at affordable premiums. And the cost of the required coverage varies based on the type of the business the customer runs and the level of risk they're exposed to. In Australia, in this part of the world, for example, to get a 10 to 40 mil coverage in this part of the world will cost between 10 to probably 50,000 And our goal is to enable the insurers to offer these sorts of coverage for the mid-market at a much lower end of the premium, or even lower.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. I think we are on time, so I'm really excited to meet you here, and thank you so much for taking the time and share your insight. I'm gonna move back to the host.
What a really insightful panel we had here today. I'm such a big believer in what CXA Group are achieving across the Asia Pacific, and I'm super excited to see their global scale in collaboration with partners like HSBC and others, and delighted to have Detection, in fact, as one of our core strategic suppliers, being the silver bullet to regulatory compliance in cybersecurity for us in Asia. And finally, delighted to see Maria and the team at DACO provide inclusive solutions for insurtech and healthcare in Asia. Today, I'm now going to hand over to our next panel that is going to look at step change in agricultural logistics and supply chains. But before I do so, a tribute to our collaborators. Fantastic. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Jimmy Shanahan, a venture partner at R3I Ventures and a professor at UC Berkeley. Over to you, Jimmy.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, Luxembourg and Europe, and good morning and good evening to others who are joining from all over the world. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to the Luxembourg Calling House of the DeepTech Showcase. As you may be aware of, this DeepTech Showcase features emerging startups from R3I House of X, its House of DeepTech, and House of MedTech Luxembourg immersion programs. R3I Ventures, a Luxembourg-based eco-advisory system, is also a DeepTech investor and is producing this event. I'm Jimmy Shanahan, and I'm based in San Francisco, where I teach AI and data science at UC Berkeley. As Lisa mentioned, I'm also a partner with Lisa in R3I Ventures. So today, we've got a very exciting topic of discussion, which centers on step changes in agriculture, logistics, and supply chains. In addition, we've got four wonderful panelists whose organizations are pioneering this change. So I'll just introduce briefly the four panelists here. So we've got Dr. Danielle Palicia, who is the CEO and co-founder of Dronesec from Australia. And Dronesec is a big data-driven quality and provenance intelligence system for fresh food supply chain. Then we have Dr. Rafael Sotelo, who is the co-founder of Quantum South, and he's based in Uruguay. And Quantum South works with complex optimization problems for cargo in airlines and ships through leveraging quantum computing software. This is a huge problem in the supply chain, and it's kind of exciting to hear more about what Quantum South is doing. Then we have Kane Conti, and who is co-founder of Hope.tech. It's a US company, and it's redefining the B2B medical supply industry via its smart marketplace and management platform. Then finally, we have Frederick Akpogjen, who is the CEO and founder of Jagopods. And again, it's a US based company, and it's designing and manufacturing autonomous pods. And essentially it's covering the last mile in our ecosystem. So as I mentioned, the topic for discussion here is step change in agriculture, logistics, and supply chains. And when we look at a dictionary and we try to examine what does step change mean, basically it corresponds to a significant change in policy or attitude, especially that results in an improvement or increase. So when I look at agriculture, logistics, and supply chains, I conjecture that there are step changes being fueled by a variety of things. And today, I'd like for our panelists to kind of think about this in terms of how the pandemic that we're living through is fueling some of this, how digital transformation and the need for responsible agriculture and other avenues are fueling these step changes. So let's start maybe by having the panelists maybe introduce themselves and their companies briefly. And in addition, if you could maybe address how COVID is either is affecting your company. Is it a step change? Is it an accelerator? Or is it how is it affecting you? So maybe we can start with Danielle, if that's okay.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yes, my name is Daniel Felice. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rubens Technologies. And so we provide an intelligence system for the fresh fruit industry. And so we are looking at a digitized way to non-destructively assess fruit quality and maturity before harvest, and so that growers and producers can actually plan their harvest for expected target markets, so optimizing the operations of the harvest and the operation of the first steps of the supply chains that are critical to decide where the fruit is going to go around the world, or how long it's going to be stored for, or what is the expected shelf life, and so on. We work at the moment with growers and producers towards this goal, and for us, probably COVID has been certainly an accelerator in terms of raising awareness of with the pressure that it puts on primary producers, especially with a lower access to labor and a lower access to and the pressures that put on the supply chains. So they raised awareness on the need for digitized solutions, for not relying on necessarily manual operations to do a lot of those quality controls that we look forward to actually being able to help them in the future.
Great, thank you very much. So maybe next, maybe we can have Raphael. Maybe if you could maybe tell us about your exciting venture.
Thank you. Hello, Jimmy. Certainly exciting. I am a co-founder of Quantum South. We work, as you said, on optimization, applying quantum computing. We were born at the University of Montevideo in Uruguay, 2019, when we became one of the 5 finalists of the Airbus Quantum Computing Challenge. In 2020, we participated in an acceleration program at IoT Tribe, an accelerator based in UK and Spain. And we have just finished a product for aircraft load optimization using quantum computing, a real quantum computer. It is ready to be applied to real aircraft models with every constraint present in the real world, making operations easier and allowing higher incomes and saving time and fuel. Our other R&D lines are the extension of our quantum optimization algorithms to aircraft fuel optimization, to maritime cargo, and to portfolio optimization in finances. We are honored to be with you today and excited for being part of the R3I community. And going to your question, the pandemic has been favorable for us in 2 dimensions. The first one is that since we are working on aircraft loading, since the passenger passenger exchange and passenger occupation of the airplanes were reduced, the companies reconvert their aircrafts to cargo. So to have more incomes, so they have a higher focus on air cargo. So so they are looking at with very interested to our solution. And the second one is to have access very easily to people, business network and collaborators from all parts of Latin America and from all over the world.
Great. Thanks, Raphael. So it's exciting to hear things like excuses say that people are on flights. We're flying again, we're traveling. So unfortunately today, Kane Conti is on a flight currently, and but we have a very capable substitute, Kate Hull, who will fill in for Kane. And without further ado, Kate, maybe you can introduce your organization and tell us how COVID has affected your organization and your vertical.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, so I'm Kate, CEO and co-founder of Freight Exchange. So we are a logistics automation platform, and it's obviously exciting to go after Raphael because we are the digitization platform that allows supply chain optimizations to happen for businesses with complex supply chains that use airlines and that use shipping lines and use trucks and trains. We essentially make that the process of moving goods through their supply chain from order to the door. We automate all of those processes. In terms of how the COVID has affected our business, so on one hand, it was challenging because a lot of the businesses that use our platform, some of them went, suffered, and many of them also exploded. And so it was really an interesting to see how the market responded, and then and the effect on the market. On a positive note, it was incredibly, we had demand from segments of clients which we hadn't seen before, and the trend towards digitization and front page news is really highlighting the problem that we solve. No shipping, no shopping. That's one of the things that we can help with.
Great, awesome. Surely there are many kids who are banking on the supply chain being optimized and delivering this Christmas. So thank you very much. So then next up, let's have Fred. Maybe if you can tell us about Jagopods. It's an exciting name, an exciting venture, and maybe how the pandemic has affected you.
Thank you very much, Dr. James. So my name is Frederick, CEO and founder of Jago. And what we do at Jago is we design and manufacture autonomous pods used for last mile delivery of business services. Particularly, we're starting with the healthcare sector and plan to move into delivery and creating unique retail experiences. We've already been able to garner interest from government organizations that want to use our products for healthcare solutions in remote areas, and also for use, actually speaking about agriculture, being able to use our pods for automated food distribution in food deserts. Now, in regards to how COVID impacted our industry and business, with the COVID-19 restrictions and social distancing requirements in most cities, the need for automated, humanless, contactless deliveries rose during that period and continues to rise. And so that's, for us, that became our timeline for product launch actually reduced because of that surging demand and need. And for me, when I came up with the vision and the product and solution, I was already, over 2 decades in tech and software engineering and development. So I wanted to simplify the process of bringing business services to you, especially urgent medical care. So pretty much in a nutshell, that's what we're doing at Jego. We're excited to contribute to this space. A lot of interesting players. And keynote for ours is that you can actually stand in our pods, and they're not only for partial deliveries. It's pretty much a workspace on wheels that users can reserve using our IoT mobile app as well.
Great. Thank you, Fred. All right, let's get down to business here. And something that's very close to my heart is digital transformation. And I've been working in the field of AI and data for the last 30 years, but I feel like the last couple of years have been transformational. And for many industries, we're going through digital transformation. And when we and companies have found great value by applying digital and artificial intelligence technologies to new business models and product offerings. Now, agricultural players, from farmers to end consumers, are discovering that these technologies can play a role in optimizing the fiendishly complex agricultural supply chain that we've been talking about already. So can you comment on how digital transformation is creating value in agriculture, logistics, and supply chains? And how far along are we in this transformation? When we look across industries, some industries are barely started, while many industries have already completed that digital transformation very successfully. And some have failed as well, by the way. So if you can comment. Yeah, go ahead, Raphael.
If I may, yes, I think that there has been an enormous progress, but the major part is still to come. I mean, we are developing new tools, developing new technologies that will enable us to work with larger number of constraints and variables concerning optimization problems. So, and we have the reality we are constructing brings, we have just mentioned IoT, sensors, so we will have more and more data coming from more and more devices. We will have enabling technologies such as, for example, quantum computing. So that are my thoughts, that we have done a lot and we see the benefits for humanity right now and of the wellness of humanity. And we are working on huge topics related to sustainability and care of the environment. So we have to work also, for example, on fuel optimization to reduce carbon emissions, to save money, and so on. So my view is optimistic in that we still have more and more to improve.
Great. Daniel, you're in the sensor building business, and I'd like to hear about how you're affecting digital transformation for various companies who may be your clients.
Yes, absolutely. I think, in agriculture, at least, obviously, the digital transformation went hand in hand with the availability of good quality data. And so you're looking at part of agriculture, say the broad agro cropping, that immediately took up these types of digital transformation with the availability of imagery, like satellite imagery or drone imagery, that enable to actually give prediction on the crops in a much more timely fashion, in a much more digitized ways than what used to be possible in the past. We are seeing that this is also coming along in the field that the sector that I work more in, which is horticulture, which again, we are trying to address that problem of how do you get those high quality digitized data in that field, which is in general not as cheap as in other sectors. So once you get that, then at that point, the algorithm and the availability of computing, then it makes the rest. And so we are assisting at this transformation that is coming in fields like in sectors like horticulture at this point, in which we are able to make predictions on individuals and high value crops based on the data that we are able to collect on the ground.
Kate, just kind of building on that a little bit, how is digital transformation? What are the biggest bottlenecks or challenges that you see for digital transformation when you're working with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the two problems that Daniel and Raphael are solving are significant digitization bottlenecks. You know, the ability to automatically know what's going on a vehicle and what's being shipped, and the quality is a really quite a significant gap. Likewise, you know, having the computing to be able, the power to be able to move goods through complex supply chains is really, you know, that huge leaps forward in terms of where we've been in the past. We're still a long way away from having the industry digitized, and certainly the cargo shipping, airlines, and especially in road transportation and trucking, there's a long way to go. There's a lot of transport companies that simply don't use technology. They use the phone. Well, sorry, they do use technology. A phone is technology. You know, they use email. And the problems that those types of things create. Likewise, there's a lot of mid to large businesses that don't have access to platforms like ours, enterprise grade automation software. And so, yeah, there's still, I think, a very long way to go. And because piecing together IoT, piecing together the algorithms and all of the devices that are out there in the world, you know, that is a large task.
Great, thank you very much. So Fred, I have a question for you. Just building on that again. So in 2017, Target acquired this company called Shipt for last mile delivery. They paid $500 million for this. People thought it was crazy, but it turned out to be a killer move. So can you maybe talk about how digital technologies are helping Jego succeed in this new world?
Certainly. Very interesting you mentioned Target's acquisition of Shipt with the last mile delivery, because that, again, during the pandemic with the COVID restrictions, that led to a surge in demand for last mile deliveries in the industry. I mean, we saw what we're seeing currently is that human drivers cost about $1.60 approximately to efficiently deliver a parcel. That's the current cost per mile. And with robotic deliveries, that number is drastically reduced to about 6 cents. So in regards to what you had mentioned, that was a really good move by Target in acquiring Shipt. For Jego, again, for us, one of the reasons we got into our space is to replace the human driver in the logistics process. So by digitizing that process, we're able to efficiently automate that process. We're able to track the location, the optimization of the entire process is better with software. However, there's still issues with scalability when it comes to like the fleet management and having a command center that's able to efficiently manage fleets that are being dispatched across cities, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges and one of the areas that most companies, usually we're having to have a third party or a second party who specializes in fleet management work on that. For us at Jego, again, as mentioned earlier, what we're seeing is that a lot of countries or governments right now actually are, ever since the COP26 meeting, they're pushing for the use of autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and in smart city related projects. And also when you look at the recent infrastructure bill that was passed in the US from Biden's administration, we're seeing that we will be able to have some of these government subsidies that could help with a fast adoption and growth within the space. We do, again, since we're talking about logistics and supply chain, one of the biggest concerns and questions that keeps coming up is the battery life and how long it could last. So those are questions that, we still are solving or still trying to solve, rather than being able to have a longer time period of running without having to go back to the charge station or having a mobile charging battery system that we could utilize. So in regards to how on the positive, and I've addressed the positive side and some of the negatives, or not necessarily negatives, but the obstacles that we have to face. But I'm really optimistic. I think there's a race to 2030 that will see a lot of solutions come between now and then. Actually, more so 2025. I think it will be accelerated because of the demand, and you have governments that are, backing such projects at the moment.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I'd like to say that at R3I, we geek out on the stuff we're talking about here. We talk a lot about the stuff that Daniel Rubentech about smart sensors. We talk a lot about smart marketplaces and supply chain exchanges, the stuff that Kate is doing at Freight Exchange. And then when it comes to solving problems, we see quantum computing as kind of a big contributor in the near future. And it's exciting to see Raphael talk about that and see him using this to solve important problems. The last mile is still a huge problem for us. We talked about ships, but we're seeing exciting developments here from Jego. And I think that along with all these great opportunities that we talked about today, there are challenges. And we didn't get a chance to talk about sustainability or traceability, which are really important in this global and responsible society that we're trying to cultivate. So without further ado, I'd like us to put our hands together virtually and say thank you to the panelists. It's been an exciting discussion. I wish we had more time, and hopefully we'll see you out there in person shortly. Thank you very much. And we're going back to the main stage now.
Thank you, Jimmy Shanahan, and thank you to our fantastic panelists who have joined you live at ungodly hours of the morning from Australia, from the US, and from Uruguay. We really appreciate your contributions to the conversation and look forward to your contributions to the European agenda. Now, it's my great pleasure to move on to the topic of space and taking those moonshots. And without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to a little context.
It takes just 3 days to reach the moon from Earth. And once there, less than 2 seconds for communications to make the journey home. On the moon, we have the natural resources needed to sustain a long-term human presence. All of this makes it the ideal base for missions further into space. Blasted by solar winds, extreme temperatures, and micrometeorites, the lunar surface is a hazardous environment. Robots and autonomous systems will be needed to help humans build a self-sustaining base. Fortunately, many of the raw materials required to construct this lasting human presence can be found on the moon itself. The location of the lunar base has been chosen for access to these essential materials. A promising area was identified by prospecting spacecraft and followed by robotic scouts dispatched to verify the quantity and quality of the resources. Lunar water can be collected by melting regolith or vaporizing ice known to exist in the permanent shadows of the moon's craters. Solar radiation, directed by solar concentrators, heats the frozen ground so the valuable water, deposited there by comet impacts and preserved in the perpetual icy cold shadows, can be collected. The water is used for life support and irrigation of crops grown in greenhouses to feed lunar inhabitants. The elements that make up water are used to create lunar fuel cells and rocket propellant, drastically cutting the cost of onward missions into deep space, as well as creating viable markets for space resources products. Lunar regolith, the layer of dust and rock covering almost the entire surface of the moon, is used to construct and protect much of the moon base, including housing, roads, and landing pads. It contains many essential elements and can be refined to extract those needed to build and maintain the base. Solar panels, glass, metal tools, electronics, and building materials, such as lunar concrete. The moon is the logical next frontier, our stepping stone to the natural resources available on asteroids, Mars, and across the solar system. As well as reducing the cost and improving the viability of exploration missions, use of space resources will create major socio-economic benefits for humankind in many areas of science and technology. Luxembourg is the centre in Europe for space resources. We are working with the European Space Agency and international partners to encourage the scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs and lawyers to develop the framework and building blocks for the space resources value chain. Each of these building blocks will be crucial to make the utilization of space resources a reality. The pioneers of tomorrow's space industry are busy today, anticipating the needs of a fair and sustainable space-based economy. The foundations of the first moon base may not be laid for another decade, but preparations are well underway. Soon, we will look up at the night sky and see ourselves looking back.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the perfect introduction to our next panelist. I would like to welcome to the stage Dr. Iona Kosmuta, the finalist in the She Loves Tech Japan competition and our esteemed Luxembourg immersion entrepreneur. Welcome to the stage, Iona. Can you give us some background on your illustrious career at NASA prior to stepping out on your own?
Thank you, Lisa. My pleasure being here, and a wonderful movie to kick off the conversation. Absolutely. So I actually joined NASA in 2003 because I was at Stanford as a postdoc in the Genome Technology Center, working on computational materials, and we got a project from NASA that required the skill set. The project at that time was to design solid-state nanopore for DNA sequencing, to take it on planetary missions, to be able to identify on these missions if there is life-like matter. And so that was pretty much my entry project into NASA. After a couple of months collaborating with the NASA Ames teams, I actually switched from Stanford to NASA, and I worked at the Center for Nanotechnology for a couple of years, primarily looking into modeling at the ab initio, like molecular level, a variety of materials. So not only the solid-state nanopore that I was talking about, but also carbon nanotubes and nanocomposites, etc. As you can imagine, the need for these kind of materials is very broad across the different NASA missions. And then, after a while, I was very curious to learn about the engineering side of NASA. There's always that friction between scientists and engineers, where scientists keep asking the deeper questions and the engineer question the value for that. And so I wanted to adopt the engineering mindset and worked in hypersonic reentry and design of thermal protection systems. Very interesting missions that I could contribute to, such as the Stardust post-flight analysis, the development of instrumentation for the Mars Science Laboratory, as well as the design of the MSL heat shield, and in particular, a lot of uncertainty analysis related to the design of the MSL heat shield. And then fast forward in 2010, 2011 timeframe, I was recruited actually through an effort at NASA headquarters, driven by the Emerging Space Office, to take a fresh look at ISS commercialization. What worked, what didn't, what were the barriers and opportunities at that time, and that we needed to be aware of, and make a more realistic evaluation for commercializing the ISS by 2024. And so, as you can imagine, that was a decade away, and it was very clear from the analysis that commercializing fully the ISS by 2024 wasn't on a clear path. So all the studies that we did at that time that led to current focus area, such as the ZB-LAN fiber optics manufacturing, the tissue engineering. So we kick off the vascular tissue challenge at NASA. The HP spaceborne computer originates from those efforts at that time, because basically what we did, and this was at the space portal at NASA Ames Research Center, and like I said, we were working with the Emerging Space Office at headquarters. What we did is not only to take a broad look at all the microgravity investigations that happen on the ISS, from material science to life science. Primarily, we were focused on material and life science, not the human aspects. And not only understand what happened there, at least the key questions that I was looking at is, what are industry-specific infusion points for microgravity-driven discoveries? Because it's absolutely different for the biomedical field, the pharma field, the material science field, right? The computer science, the quantum computing, the quantum electronic, the optoelectronics capabilities that were developing at that time. So that's, that was a very interesting activity, especially being based in Silicon Valley, having reached out to a variety of players, both in the industry, but also to try to understand the financing mechanisms that were available, or the awareness actually of the private capital players to the opportunities of space, which, as you can imagine, at that time was pretty low. We even went out there and talked to Lux Capital. That was I think that was around 2013, about funding, an orbital outpost for microgravity, commercial microgravity, and that was literally an idea too much out there, even for Lux Capital. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, a lot of these efforts have that we see growing today, literally have the roots in our activities of commercializing, and actually it's this roots of translation of microgravity R&D into products, into capabilities, into real solution, not just like we've seen before, occasional pieces of success.
It's very rare that someone with a scientific background truly does develop that commercial capability and competency. And it's so impressive that you've been able to take that out of the lab of NASA into your own commercial agenda. Now, everybody says you're taking a massive moonshot, that your ambition is just decades away. What do you have to say to those naysayers?
Actually, what we do at G-Space today is an absolute refinement of the original idea, right? To manufacture products in space. Of course, everybody thought you should go to space, take a hardware to space, and try to manufacture. However, the key understanding here is, by contrary to launch systems or what we see emerging today in orbital assembly, repurposing. This is really not a hardware problem. I mean, we do absolutely need the platforms outside of the ISS to allow, you know, all these opportunities to materialize, because the ISS fulfills so many different tasks, right? Not just the R&D, but technology development and so on, right? And it absolutely is the platform to spring off, the springboard platform for so many activities, right, related to human exploration beyond low Earth orbit. But we absolutely need to diversify the platform so that we can accommodate, you know, all these translational efforts and, you know, really move into the era of true in-space manufacturing. But the core there is beyond the hardware in terms of what we manufacture in space, why we want to manufacture in microgravity. And the biggest question is, who wants those products with what performance, and who wants to pay the price for that performance? This is literally not a hardware development problem, but it is a product development problem. And the product development can be absolutely solved with a software solution that's way much more affordable and efficient. So this is what we do at GSpace. That's what we provide, you know, the software as a service platform to design materials and products by experimenting here terrestrially with the lack of gravity. Makes so much sensible sense. And like I said, you know, it was an idea that was refined over, you know, a decade now.
Yeah. And so what you're providing is a platform, a software-based platform, which creators can come and co-create on your platform in order to explore that anti-gravity difference. Is that right?
Correct.
Excellent. Now, I think one of the real opportunities that I've had over the last 6 months is to see you grow and develop into this commercial ecosystem. Women get only 2% of capital today and manage only 1%. Obviously, I have got a deep mission to change that paradigm, as I'm sure you do. What do you think is the greatest opportunities for investment in the space manufacturing ecosystem? Where do you see the returns for investors?
So in this case, the returns for investments are literally supporting the development of the products and the infusion and adoption of these products into terrestrial value chains. So it absolutely, this new wave that's emerging of in-space manufacturing, right, that follows the Earth observation and satellite constellation building. The opportunity here is literally in the billions, and we're talking about creating a space-enhanced value chain. So this is manufacturing goods in space, high performance, unique materials, and material here is really in a broad sense. Yeah. That can include, you know, food for agriculture and so on. So this manufacturing of goods in space, but for terrestrial markets. And so the infusion of capital there, that it absolutely will pay, will have that return on investment, not only in terms of the money making, but also in terms of making that shift to sustainable green manufacturing. This is I believe core to for people to be aware of, and to absolutely focus on it and understand it and support it.
There is quite a space race going on at this moment, right? When you see the levels of government capital being deployed, and you see that geopolitical agenda that sits underneath it, because quite often space is tied to geospatial, which is tied to land defense. How do you see that playing out for you in the context of industrial space manufacturing? Is there any influence of geopolitics, or is this the one platform by which we can actually come together and collaborate?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm absolutely thrilled about the fact of collaborative opportunities that space offers globally, but there's always that other side of, you know, competition against ourselves in the end. And so as a software platform, we absolutely, what we hope to achieve here is to accelerate all the existing efforts in related to in-space manufacturing, and all the players that have been popping up all over the globe, from the UK to Australia to Singapore to, of course, you know, Europe and the US. And I'm sure that there are others who are considering this and will emerge tomorrow in other places like Africa and all over the world. So we really do hope that our platform and our knowledge will be there for them to help them be successful, because it already is hard enough to be a startup and focus on an idea and get the resources, again, to build hardware. I think we can take off their shoulder the burden of thinking, how do you take this scientific understanding of the what we call the delta to gravity, and how do you capitalize on it? And you know, the startups then can literally focus on just taking the hardware to space and producing, making sure that they really nail down the performance envelope of that hardware that results in the manufacturing of the product that is required.
Well, what we love about Luxembourg is that it looks at the opportunity for rapid innovation and moonshots first before it looks at the size of your company. You are one of the rare startups that I know that is not only cash flow positive in this space, but is also delivering a profit. As we know, women are one of the most underserved markets in terms of venture capital, and are delivering higher revenues, higher customer satisfaction, and beyond. We're really excited about the potential for G-Space in Luxembourg. What's your ambitions, just to communicate out there to all of the people in our ecosystem? What would you like to achieve, and how can they help you?
Sure. So we really want to work across the entire ecosystem in Luxembourg, from the Ministry of Economy to Luxinnovation and the Luxembourg Space Agency. On top of that, I've seen recently an announcement from LIST, which is the Luxembourg Science and Innovation Innovation, Science and Technology, on materials for space. And we really think that there is a huge synergy here with G-Space on leveraging on the existing knowledge in Luxembourg and just adding that delta to gravity. And this would very nicely connect with Luxembourg's ambition and dedication to make space resources happen, because ultimately what will emerge is different raw material supply chains, like they were showing in the video, right from the surface of the moon. So right now, of course, the raw material source is terrestrial. But as we create the success stories of the products manufacturing space, we will be able to naturally evolve into using other sources of raw materials from the orbital debris that is out there, and then expanding into whatever will be mined from the moon. And in fact, the US had a call, a DARPA call, NOM4D, that was really already looking into the these different sources. So we as a software platform, again, we're agnostic, and we do hope that we can support even more and even better, the collaborative efforts between countries, Luxembourg and the US, or Australia, etc.
Fantastic. And certainly our Moon to Mars agenda and ambitions between Australia and Korea and the US is certainly something we'd like to make a contribution to. So thank you, Iona, for joining us today. A shout out to all of our friends at LIST. There is a collaboration opportunity right here in the House of DeepTech. And Iona, we are excited to play a role in your future journey. Thanks for joining us.
So are we. And thank you for your support. We look forward.
Our pleasure. So without further ado, that wraps up the panels for today, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd just like to share with you our own moonshot here at R3I Ventures. R3I Ventures has a venture capital arm called R3I Capital, and we've made it our mission that over the next 10 years, we're going to raise $1 billion to invest in the deep tech pioneers that are accelerating impact that you've seen here today. We have a team purposely placed around the world, curating startup from government partnerships that deliver us a unique pipeline of collaboration opportunities, and working deeply into our deep science ecosystems provides us with the ample opportunities to co-collaborate and to adapt those products into different markets. And we're really excited to land here in Luxembourg with our eyes set sharp on Europe, but with a view to landing and expanding those technologies back into Asia and back into the United States. Thank you to all of our panelists who've joined us here today, and a deep thanks to all of our partners. It's our great privilege to be a signatory to Beyond the Billion, a collaboration of $2 billion of the world's capital dedicated to funding female founders. It's our great privilege to be a partner of She Loves Tech in Japan and Korea, Luxembourg and Belgium. And it's our great privilege to be a decade-long partner of TBLI, the Responsible Investment Family Office ecosystem committed to transforming the flows of capital for impact. And a huge shout out to our PERC partners who today are helping our founders to reduce their burn rate and extend their mileage without giving away the shop. Last but not least, I'd like to pay a tribute to Ian Creswell, who I met here in Luxembourg 3 years ago, who has been my guiding Sherpa into the ecosystem, and who we are deeply indebted to for the progress that we've made for our founders. I'm proud to share that we have opened 6 companies here in Luxembourg in the last 6 months who are now landing and expanding their innovations into the European Union. And we have invested just over $3 million in capital into the founders who are shaping their companies for a European future. So thank you to all of our team, thank you to all of our partners, and to the Ministry of Economy of Luxembourg and Luxinnovation, our deepest and sincerest thanks for your support as we've taken our landing as well. Without further ado, I'd now like to close out the panel and invite you to join our founders in their booths for networking. This is your opportunity to connect, engage, invest, and trade with our founders and to forge those long-term relationships. Today is just the beginning of a conversation, and we look forward to that continuing on the journey together. Thank you, and let's together accelerate impact. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with a special thought from our friend Jacob in the TBLI ecosystem about the role that venture capital can play in the Luxembourg ecosystem and beyond.
As a man thinketh, so is he. We've all heard that before. Do we really believe it? Do we really grasp that this world we live in is a byproduct of who we decide we are? As she thinketh in her heart, so is she. There's this notion that we've had stuck in our heads for so long, that the invisible hand of capitalism had to be a selfish hand, a hand without sympathy, that it simply wouldn't work any other way. But what if we were wrong? What if that's not true and never has been? People say a business's purpose is to make money, but it's not. A business's purpose is to fill a need for the market, and they get to thrive as a byproduct of how well they can do that. That's what the invisible hand actually is. That dance of cause and effect, aligning our individual self-interests with the common good. I get to benefit because I have given value to others. Instead of comprehending that, we persisted in the comforting delusion that there was a safe distance in time and space between us and whoever might bear the pain of our choices. And we fed ourselves the false narrative that the market somehow turned our selfishness into more hidden good than the harm we could clearly see it causing. So we simply don't see, because it's so easy not to. But the world is shrinking, and the world is suffering, and we must look. Those distances are no longer safe for any of us. There's no room anymore for fairy tales about the consequences of our actions. We are left at a choice. If we keep telling the story that the market requires the exploitation of the invisible and the poisoning of our earth, then that is what will be. But if we start to tell another story, that their interests are our interests, then that is what will be. What we believe is the crux of it. The market will work just the same. Maybe the dirty secret is it will work even better, free to focus on the needs of all its stakeholders. Maybe the dirty secret is there is a world richer than we can even imagine, sitting just on the other side of our foolish notion that we have to be unkind to each other to prosper. That is the secret, that capitalism, like any ism, is nothing more and nothing less than the magnifier of our intent. It will be whatever it is because of what we are. It does not make us, but only reveals us to ourselves. But if we quit now, if we stand by as innocents suffer and our world wanes, and say, the market can do so many great things, but not this one most urgent thing, then all we have revealed are the limits of our own vision and humanity. The long and short of it is we are the ones who choose. What we believe is all that seals our fate. As we think it in our hearts, so are we. And maybe it's time we think a new thought.
The goal of my work is to understand how the brain changes during Parkinson's disease in order to come up with targeted therapeutic interventions that could be used to help patients in the future. My name is Natasha Mwanigwa, and I am a PhD student at the LCSB at the University of Luxembourg.
My main goal is to use mathematical models to forecast the onset of diseases such as epileptic seizures or atrial fibrillation. We would like to improve the patient's health through a combination of math and clinical practice. My name is Daniele Proverbio, and I'm conducting research as a doctoral candidate at the LCSB.
Natasha and Daniele are among more than 50 young scientists who are doing their PhD at the LCSB, the Luxembourg Center for Systems Biomedicine. As a part of the University of Luxembourg, the LCSB has a strong focus on research into neurodegenerative diseases, in particular Parkinson's disease. More than 200 experts are working here on deciphering the genetic and molecular basis of these diseases. Only through understanding the mechanisms of such diseases is it possible to develop new targeted methods for diagnosis and treatment. Most of Luxembourg's PhD positions are organized within doctoral training units funded by the Luxembourg National Research Fund. This unique concept for doctoral student education aims to stimulate interdisciplinarity from day one. 10 to 15 PhD students are recruited to form a doctoral training unit led by several professors on an overarching topic.
It was, for me, the right balance between theory, which is the field where I come from, and practice, collaborating with wet lab people, interacting with new fields of expertise, and therefore I asked for a position, and luckily I got it.
What many especially appreciate here is the interdisciplinary collaboration and high degree of internationality. Biologists, medical professionals, chemists, engineers, mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists from around the world work together at the LCSB and seek answers to urgent medical questions. The LCSB also places great importance on providing excellent supervision for doctoral students.
When I'm stuck, I can definitely go to my supervisor or the postdocs in my group to interact and to get some expertise from. I can get to them and, please, I have this problem, can you help me out with this? And they always have time for you.
The Institute is located on the new campus of the University of Luxembourg, one of the youngest universities in Europe. The extensive campus was recently built on the former steel industry site in Esch-Belval. It is a unique combination of industrial monuments and modern architecture. Here, the LCSB offers exceptional conditions and infrastructure for conducting research in the heart of Europe. Many cafes and restaurants located right alongside the university buildings create a vibrant atmosphere for catching up outside the labs, seminar rooms, and offices. Enjoy the rich campus life at LCSB with regular retreats and interest groups, or one of the university's many free sports, art, and music programs. An integral part of the Institute's culture are the regular Thank God It's Almost Friday revelries as cheerful occasions to get together for drinks and snacks and invite colleagues to exchange ideas after work. Young talents who would like to do their PhD at the LCSB are invited to apply. Candidates for the doctoral training units are selected in an assessment center, which also provides a great way to become more acquainted with the Institute and the research group leaders. It also leaves time to visit the surroundings and enjoy an outing together.
It was a nice insight into what working at the LCSB would be like and what kind of work I would do here. And I think it really drew me to this place a lot because I got really an inside look into life here and life at the LCSB.
Joint discussions across all disciplines and nationalities make for innovative science at the LCSB. Anyone seeking a dynamic, excellently equipped environment and wishing to contribute to the advancement of biomedical research will find the ideal conditions here.
Excellent research needs young people and their creativity and ideas. Here in Luxembourg, we are doing great research. Come and join the LCSB, join our team.
Cześć, jestem Patrycja Maters, jestem prawnikiem w Luksemburskim Instytucie Zdrowia. Jestem Polką, wychowałam się w Niemczech.
Mein Name ist Niebers und ich bin der Leiter des LIH. LIH is a translational research institute, and I would add it's a next generation translational research institute.
So I decided to come to Luxembourg because the Luxembourg Institute of Health is a very young institute and it still offers the possibilities to shape a lot of things and do things in a different way. And the other part is surely the scientific part, because we have the possibility to do top-level proteomics, combine it with genomics within this group. And this is a fantastic new opportunity to push the boundaries of science here in Luxembourg.
We are not only conducting fundamental research in the areas of oncology and inflammation, but in our research we are able to put the patient into the center. And that's possible because we have a Department of Population Health, fairly unique. It's allowing us to do clinical trials to address health questions at a level of a population. And in addition, we also have an integrated biobank, which allows us to get and to store patient material and data. In an overall trend where biomedical research is moving away stepwise from animal models towards the patient, we are uniquely positioned to be at the forefront of this movement and in fact to apply personalized medicine.
Je m'appelle François Bernardin, je suis technicien au sein de l'unité de protéomique du LIH.
My name is Amy Parrish. I'm a PhD student at the Department of Infection and Immunity in the Ecoimmunology and Microbiome group. I'm from San Francisco, California. I think LH will be very beneficial for me for my career path, especially in terms of the project that I'm completing. We have all of the resources and technology here in the Institute in order to create a very successful PhD thesis.
We have reached truly international competitiveness in the last 10 years or so, and coupled with this has come a team spirit, Luxembourg, that makes for great synergies between the various research actors here in Luxembourg. And within this context, the LIH can truly conduct research for the benefit of patients.
The mission of LIH is not only to conduct research, but to conduct research that can be applied. We want to impact on patients, we want to impact on unmet needs, we want to improve quality of life. And these are the objectives of our research effort.
Ik ben Kira Sviontek, zitsenboeierin en arbeid seit 11 jaar am LIH.
माझे नाव महेश देसाई आहे. मी इथे LIH मध्ये ग्रुप लीडर म्हणून काम करतो. मी मूळचा भारतीय आहे. I really like my job because it offers me a possibility to explore my own research ideas, and I can supervise a research team of people coming from different countries, and we all can look at problems differently because we have different background educations.
I feel a privilege to be a scientist which had the possibility to bring discoveries done in the laboratory into the clinic, to be in the position to help other people and to contribute in the fight against cancer.
Of course, we want to bring new therapies, new diagnostics. We want to really impact on quality of life and unmet needs. But I think beyond that, by putting all of these new technologies to work, artificial intelligence, patient-based disease modelings. Maybe another aspect is also to transport the excitement of the research endeavour that we are building here, and maybe exciting young people, exciting children for the endeavour of research and what it can produce, how it can impact on society. I think this would be a very worthwhile goal.
Patients' active engagement in research can actually help scientists understand what's most relevant for them, because the outcome of our research, of our studies, will actually be for these patients. We hope to make a difference in their lives.
Ça que j'adore dans ce boulot, c'est que c'est très varié.
On voit énormément de personnes, on travaille avec différents acteurs, aussi bien des médecins, des responsables d'études. Et c'est ça qui est super motivant, c'est de pouvoir travailler dans des équipes pluridisciplinaires, complètes. Et chacun apporte sa pierre à l'édifice. Et nous avançons dans des projets de recherche clinique pour faire améliorer les connaissances médicales.
NIH wants to be a driver of this ability to apply. In principle, these things can be done at the benchtop. What is important, however, that you have a clear goal, that you put many parts together. It's not one institute. That is the research scene in Luxembourg, which has a common focus and puts various parts into position to be able to apply. Application is not a simple process. It is not something that one researcher does at the benchtop. Translation is a coordinated process in its planning, in its vision. And LIH wants to be part of that. It wants to be part of a team in Luxembourg that together goes in this direction. And we are very well on the way.
I have an idea.
Luxembourg is definitely the best landing spot in Europe for fintech.
We are building a strong fintech ecosystem focusing on sectors that are relevant for Luxembourg.
It's really the innovation spirit, the enthusiasm to try new things that we would like to foster in the country. So this is really what the Loft stands for.
I am moving.
Luxembourg is a small country, nevertheless a great place for doing business.
Because we live in a world where financial and investor education matters more than ever.
I am an accelerator.
Luxembourg is a place where entrepreneurs can develop their networks quickly, easily, and as far as needed.
I am a link.
Luxembourg is connecting people and businesses. That's how we do it here.
We value the international connections that the Loft provides, enabling us to work with domestic and international stakeholders on key RegTech issues for the asset management industry.
The growth of our business requires a strong ecosystem globally and here in Luxembourg. Loft is a key partner.
I am an ecosystem.
The Loft helped us to effectively set up our Bitcoin exchange and grow, connecting us to countless domestic and international stakeholders.
The successful digitalization of financial services requires banks, fintechs, regulators, technology platforms to work in close associations.
As a European blockchain association from Luxembourg, we are very glad to be part of a highly vibrant and connected environment.
I am a catalyst.
We are a catalyst to transform and evolve the economy.
We continuously innovate in order to make your client experience the differentiator.
I am inspiring.
Together, we'll shape and design the financial future for the next generation.
I am an innovation hub.
Thanks to a suitable environment, we support businesses across the digital lifecycle.
Fidelity as legacy, modernity as project.
I am a community.
We only work with the best. And that's also the foundation of our collaboration with the Loft.
Meeting, chatting, sharing ideas, all this creates synergies.
I'm a public-private initiative with a strong partnership.
We are unique. We are agile. We are collaborative.
I am your future. I am the Loft.
We have in Luxembourg a kind of dynamic ecosystem around finance in general and sustainable finance in particular. But where we can do more than other countries is that we have a financial center that is really of international relevance. If we can leverage the ecosystem of our financial center to reduce emissions worldwide, well, then our contribution to climate change will be huge.
Only if we work together, finance sector, environmentalists, and also work for human rights. So if we have a holistic approach and if we understand each other, we will really do this shift that we really need in order to create a more sustainable world.
My hope is that at the end of the journey, we will no longer talk about sustainable finance, because all finance will be sustainable by default.
Luxembourg is a hub where different types of actors come together. We have a supportive government, regulators, and the puzzles of finance sort of for this sustainable and innovative space come together here.
Public money alone won't do it. We need an interaction of private investment and public investment to reach the goal. The financial sector, insurance companies and banks are realizing that it is not only in their best interest to foster such products in the future, but it is an existential thing, because once the demand for such products becomes overwhelming, well, you better deliver what the public wants. And if we do the calculation right and look at the return on investment by integrating the impact on environment and on climate change, we will need lots of new products.
During the last years, we launched quite a lot of initiatives. Together with the European Investment Bank, for instance, we created an international finance platform where the government takes the guarantee of the first loss. Secondly, we created new funds. For instance, the Forestry and Climate Change Fund. The third, an international climate finance accelerator, something for young finance managers.
The financial center of Luxembourg, which is specialized in cross-border services, is very well equipped to invent new tools that are less risky, that have a good return on investment, and at the same time fulfill the goals of the Paris Accord on climate change, and I would say even in a larger sense the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
We are promoting critical infrastructure, support for SMEs, environmental projects and other projects that produce sustainable growth in Europe. On the one hand side, we issue green bonds to get investors interested and then have a product for institutional investors. And on the other side, we're really trying to find investment or financing situations where we can mobilize private finance on top or in addition to public finance. We call this blending. In very simple terms, what the Luxembourg Climate Finance Platform does, it provides first loss funding to smaller investment funds located here in Luxembourg. So it's high-risk capital that they're putting into a fund in order to demonstrate certain investment strategies or help very impactful fund managers to raise the necessary funding from the private sector. And the first loss funding really serves as a risk buffer, often for perceived risk, sometimes also real risk, in order to entice other investors to say, I would not necessarily invest maybe in these geographies and these sectors, but with some additional risk protection, I'm actually risking it.
The Forestry and Climate Change Fund is an impact fund to address the trend of ongoing deforestation in the tropics. And it finances smallholder and communities to allow them to better manage the forests they have under control. We are seeing that about 15% of global climate emissions come from deforestation mainly and forest degradation. At the same time, we see a lot of activities where we try to plant trees, but we believe you need to address the problem at its core. We are finding when you go into this sector, banks are usually very reluctant to lend to individuals who own forests. It needs to be adapted to the cycle of the forests, but it can be a very strong enabling role in making that sector competitive compared to cattle raising and other land use, which are much more destructive from a climatic point of view. The way we do that is that we invest in intermediaries. We invest in companies or NGOs or cooperatives who are aggregating and facilitating these kind of business models.
The International Climate Finance Accelerator, or ICFA, has been set up in 2018 by the Luxembourg Ministries of Finance and the Environment and 9 financial partners here. Essentially what it does, it is an acceleration program for emerging asset managers in climate finance and impact finance. It supports the selected teams with what they call a service envelope, which basically is a budget. It gives a working capital line, and it provides training and coaching. So basically we've come out of this tree hugger corner into a normal financial market that is supported by mainstream investors. On the other hand, of course, there is a danger that, of greenwashing, that mainstreaming it becomes less strict on the criteria that we apply.
The objective of a sustainable finance label, such as those awarded by Lux Flag, is to reassure investments that what they're investing in is following responsible investing principles. Sustainable finance is on the one hand, ESG, climate finance goals, the sustainable development goals, so looking to create a sustainable society, if you will, from the climate, social, governance perspective. But it's also just about investing in companies that are around for the future. And in terms of an emerging trend, I think it's clear that businesses will be suffering as a result of extreme weather, for instance, the impact of climate change. And that obviously will raise the attention not only of the businesses in terms of their bottom line, but it will raise the attention of the shareholders. And I think that will also help move the conversation forward in terms of sustainable finance and why we need to address it and why it needs to be embedded as opposed to just kind of dealt with as a side topic.
The Luxembourg Green Exchange is the world's first and still unique platform entirely dedicated to sustainable financial instruments. It began with green bonds and then was extended to social and sustainable bonds and even SAIB investment funds. We launched the Green Exchange in 2016 as a response to the Paris Climate Agreement and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We now have a 50% market share of all green, social and sustainable bonds listed worldwide. LGX gives investors an easy access to data and information and allows them to compare similar products. And more importantly, through reporting, investors can keep track on how issuers make good on their commitments.
What I expect to see is that banks and insurance companies will come up with new products that will attract more people. In fact, there is already a stronger demand by customers for sustainable services and products.
Climate crisis and biodiversity loss, it's about resilience, about peace, about security. We have to show the opportunities that investing in a more resilient world will create well-being, will create lots of opportunities also for economic actors. It's about give people hope, and that will make us able to live in it.
To achieve the goals of climate change is one that it's what people want more and more. The young generation wants it even more than the adults. And the young people are sometimes very idealistic. But in life, you need to be idealistic to change things.